Persuasion, psychological warfare, and manipulation is around us all the time. It happens in media, it happens between politicians, it happens in marketing, in negotiations, everywhere. It's probably happened to you 10 times today. I don't know if you guys saw, but I saw the Zelensky and Trump conversation, which blew up. And when I was watching it, I was like, damn, these guys are using a lot of different psychological and persuasive tactics on each other in this conversation. And it was a great example and something good for me to break down to show you what's really going on, because I actually couldn't see any comments that were talking about it. When you see people who have reached positions of power, such as, you know, being a president, they are almost always ultra persuasive and able to influence people. And then when you see them speak or see them have a conversation or a debate with someone, you can actually say that, oh, I know exactly why they've managed to reach this position of power. So let's take a little look into this conversation. This is actually a 50-minute long conversation, but I thought I would just show one of the most popular clips of it because, damn, there's a lot of persuasive strategies in this. Let's go.
And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Wow, so straight away, Zelensky uses this loaded question with something called general consensus. And he says, you know, I'm talking with my friends in Poland. They're worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them? Straight away, this is in the Oval Office in front of the world. He's essentially saying, hey, I think you are, you know, being too much of an ally to Putin, which is now going to put Trump straight on the defensive. Now, Trump has really two options here. He can either agree with it, in which case he looks like he's pro-Putin, or he can look bad by coming off as ultra defensive. So his response here has got to be very delicate and balanced so that he doesn't fall into either of those two categories. Let's watch how he handles it.
If I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal? It doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hate?
It was a great reframe what he came back with there. I'm not aligned with any camp in particular. I'm aligned with the world. And this was perhaps the best possible answer, considering he was either going to come off as pro-Putin or he was going to come off as ultra-defensive.
And I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, you know, him either.
He's done something very subtle there as well. He's said, you know, Zelensky has, you know, a ton of hatred for Putin, but how he's kind of phrased it almost could suggest that he's essentially saying Zelensky's leadership is a bit too emotionally involved and he's not seeing things quite clearly. And I've reached this conclusion because he's going to double down in a minute and start trying to use power moves on Zelensky here, and that is undermining his credibility. So let's carry on watching.
So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes.
I find this funny. I did a breakdown previously of Donald Trump that he has this tendency to, any type of sentence he says, it's always, you will never find anyone like me. I am the best ever. These guys are the worst people, and I've seen a lot of bad people. He has this tendency to like make something really dramatic, and I think it's just like a part of his character. But it's very funny how he says things.
One more question.
I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
So JD Vance did something very subtle there, but it was very powerful. He added something called the contrast bias. And the contrast bias is he contrasted Donald Trump's behavior at the moment, known as the deal maker, and he contrasted that deal maker behavior, which is, in terms of proaction, making deals, diplomacy, and he contrasted it with inaction, which is something the American public and, the public in general in the UK, they hate that there's no results, lots of talking, no results. But he's used that contrast to basically amplify that we are a results-based presidency here, and we are going to take action on things and actually settle things the right way, the real way, and that is by taking action, by diplomacy, not just showing that we want to do good things. And just in that simple sentence there, he's made Biden appear weak, he's strengthened Trump's position, and he's also starting to angle towards let's make a deal as well. So very clever.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him. A lot of.
So Zelensky there, in an attempt to take back control of this conversation, he's done something called appealing to emotions, right? And he's also gone and talked about the facts of what's happened before. He's now saying, you know what, you guys might try and make deals, but we've tried to make deals with Putin before. It hasn't worked because basically it hasn't stopped him killing. He has a tendency to break rules, and there's lots and lots of, people dying here. He's saying things like he killed our people, right? Appeal to the emotions. And he's also undermining the deal frame, which JD Vance has just set up there. So he is painting Putin as, pretty untrustworthy. And it's just interesting how he has directly addressed that point, but also undermined Donald Trump's ability to make deals. He's saying, why are you any different? This has already happened before.
Conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect.
So I would say Zelensky at this point has successfully achieved, the angle of like diplomacy is not going to work here. So what JD Vance is going to do now is he's actually going to try to take the moral high ground off Zelensky, because Zelensky has just established the moral high ground. He's appealed to the emotions. He's also come back with all these facts as well about what's happened previously. And now JD Vance is going to take a different tactic. It's very clever. Watch this.
I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
So he's flipped it now, and he said you are basically ungrateful. He's changed the focus of the conversation. You're ungrateful. You should be thanking us as well.
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people.
Zelensky's shaking his head here. Look at this, because he's saying that you haven't experienced it. You haven't experienced what it's like over here. And he's asked him, because he knows that JD Vance hasn't been over there. And he's saying, hey, you know what? have you actually been to Ukraine? Watch how JD Vance actually answers this question. I'll just rewind it back so we could see Zelensky shake his head.
Actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what
go.
happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's...
You look at the arms folded here in a completely, defensive pose. You've got JD Vance pointing as well, accusing. Body language speaks like a lot about what's going on in the conversation.
Respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all,
So JD Vance actually covered a lot of topics there. And usually what happens in a conversation like that, when you get a lot of questions, you get overwhelmed, you start getting flustered, and your natural response is to try and answer them all. And you end up looking stupid. The reason why you end up looking stupid is because you can't quite remember, it's just human nature. You can't quite remember all the information you've been given. What Zelensky does here, which is he regains frame control and says, there's a lot of questions, let's start at the beginning.
during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell.
So Trump now is getting pretty pissed off at this entire conversation. And what he's going to do now is he's had enough of basically these two bickering, and he's going to attempt to power his way through it. He's using the status frame, the hierarchy frame. And he's saying that, you know, you're in no position to demand anything. We hold all the cards. And he's basically using leverage, and it's a power move right now. He's power playing in that you've come here, you're not in a good position to be saying anything. You don't have any of the cards.
Tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate.
So Zelensky said, I'm not telling you how you feel, I'm just telling you how I think it's going to happen. Trump doubles down here with their power frame. Remember, earlier in the conversation, they undermined his credibility casually, right? And now what they're doing is they're saying, you're in no position to, you know, say how we're going to feel, which wasn't his point, but they've kind of taken his words a little bit, taken them a little bit out of context. It's a power play now to make him look like he is, remember, very emotional about everything. Trump described his hatred earlier in the conversation, and it's very difficult when he's got this much hatred towards Putin. He's making him seem a little bit unreasonable. And now they're talking to him like a grown man, not only a grown man, a president on TV, right, in front of all the media, and they're, you know, telling him off, right? So interesting.
What we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
I'm not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said?
So look at what he's doing now. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. We're trying to solve a problem. He's doing this fear appeal, right? So Zelensky has went off with the moral appeal, right? You know, the moral high ground, the appeal to emotion. Trump and JD Vance have come back with their fear appeal, and you are not credible. And essentially, they're trying to take each other out with this, and it's just fascinating to watch. So it's very interesting as well that if you look through the comment sections on any of these clips of videos, the crowd generally goes into two different camps. The first camp is that JD Vance and Trump were bullying Zelensky here, and they didn't listen to his problems, they seem pro-Putin, you know, etc. And then the second camp is, we appreciate strong leadership. The US has paid out enough money so far. we're one of the powers of the world and we need to put people in the place. And it's so interesting because this part of the conversation here probably reflects that entire narrative that these two camps have taken. And you can see why as well, because it looks like, from my angle, as a UK person who's not involved in the US whatsoever, but it looks like, Trump has undermined him a little bit, is appealing to the fear of what's going on, but also as well, Zelensky has just been accused of taking, people on the propaganda tour, right? Where he is just showing people the emotions that people are getting killed in terrible ways to try and get that emotional support. So these are two incredibly powerfully persuasive people who have got to this part in their careers because they are highly influential, highly persuasive as well. So let's carry on. Let's watch a bit more of this.
Thank you once. This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you. You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who...
So you've got to keep in mind here that JD Vance has now went off on the track of that you're not being grateful at all. He's gone back to that track. Zelensky hasn't really been able to speak for the last, minute or so. I've been skipping about, obviously, and, pressing play every now and again. But he hasn't really been able to get a word in edgeways. He's getting shut down repeatedly now. And now we can see, if we look at the status in the room, when we first entered the room, Zelensky and Trump have got the same level of status. Now, when we look at this part in the conversation, not only does Trump have higher status than Zelensky, but also JD Vance also now has higher status than Zelensky as well, because he is also being allowed to talk down to Zelensky and accuse him of not following through on things and not being grateful and not thanking. So look at how this is basically shifted and the statuses have changed in the room.
Who's trying to save your country.
We're trying to save your country. So they're doing the emotional appeals themselves now. We got Illuminati signs by Donald Trump here.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
He's got cut off again now. You ever see when two people argue and then when one person is kind of losing the argument, they start accusing the other person of actually raising the voice and shouting? And I think, I don't know for sure, but I'm not in the room so I can't judge the volume, but I think that's what Zelensky was trying to do there. And he just got shut down completely by Trump immediately. Look at this hand sign.
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You've done a lot of talking. Again, they've undermined his credibility now. You've got to sit down and shut up. This is all, by the way, on TV. Some of these conversations probably do take place behind the scenes, in the office of various different presidents and governments and things like this. But it's most likely exaggerated here because it's a bit theatrical, because you've got all this media spotlight, because, these conversations usually are kept away from the public. The public, for a long time, this is also a factor, in every country has wanted increasing amounts of transparency because in every country, I'm saying, when I say every country, I mean the ones that I know, US, UK in particular, Europe, lots of different places in Europe. They have lost trust in the media. They've lost trust in leadership as well. Things have just not been going the way for the public. So this right here, to actually have this conversation out in public so everyone can see it, is a great idea, to be honest with you, because it shows transparency. There's no, I spoke to this person, this is what I said I'm going to do. They're actually trying to come to a deal right on this, point right here. But because there's an audience now, it's probably exaggerated.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
It's totally a home turf advantage here, you know. Both of them are trampling Zelensky. Zelensky is saying, I've said thank you, but JD Vance keeps coming back to say thank you again. These are frame control tactics. This is authority control. Again and again and again, they are trying to assert their authority on him, in my opinion anyway. And they're trying to do this because they have already at the start of the conversation, you could see they were potentially going to undermine his credibility. And that is exactly where they've went now, to make him look like, you know, he shouldn't really have the deciding vote on when to call this war, because he's obviously too emotionally involved. He has so much hatred for Putin that it's kind of blinded him as well. Very clever tactics, ultra persuasive tactics. It's 2 against 1, and they're on the home turf in front of the media as well. Let's just go back to what JD Vance said here as well. I'm sure he just appealed to the American public.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're...
I stand corrected, he says, rather than trying to fight it out with the American media when you're wrong. So he's still managed to end his sentence there with "you're wrong."
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me. That wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful. Because let me tell you, you don't have...
Trump is very, very good. In a previous breakdown I did of him, he is very, very good at understanding attention and understanding what will make social media. So he says, you know, Obama gave you sheets and I gave you javelins. Then he said that's the official word in there. And he's taking basically full credit for how effective the US military support is under his leadership. It's like a classic self-promotion tactic. And he's saying it so people know as well. There's a thing in psychology where, like, basically if you say something enough times, then people will just believe whatever you're saying.
The cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him.
Now, I just want to pay attention to this. So this woman, one of the big topics of conversation here is Zelensky has said, hey, you know what? We've done diplomacy before. We've done these talks and that. And it hasn't worked because Putin has, you know, just carried on killing people anyway. So this question is directly related to what he was saying before. And this lady says, what if, you know, Russia breaks this ceasefire? And so Donald Trump has actually deflected from that question. That was a very serious question. And he's come up with all these hypothetical situations, you know, what if a bomb falls on you right now, right? And he's kind of exaggerated it to take it off the point. In other words, we don't know the future. We can create all these crazy things. But this scenario has happened before, so it's actually quite a likely scenario. So he's very, very swiftly there downplayed the risk of this whole thing by basically mocking this question. And now what he's going on to say is, hey, look, he's minimizing the previous presidents and saying, hey, that wasn't me. People respect me. He's gone to that, you know, appeal to authority again. Very interesting.
And Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom.
See what he's doing again? He's bringing up past mistakes of the previous presidency. Again and again and again and again. Rather than like, let's look at this risk here, he's completely deflected off the topic now and he's talking about past mistakes of previous presidencies. Very smart move for, you know, a conversation like this in front of the media.
It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. I don't think you'd be a tough guy.
I'm just winding this back a little bit. Look at the body language of these two. That he is almost mocking and insulting Zelensky right now, but neither of them are making eye contact. They're doing this thing where they're basically kind of facing forward, but not quite engaging with each other. It's very interesting, isn't it? Both of them are actually quite uncomfortable in this debate.
He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right, we'll see what we can do about putting it together. Thanks.
So very interesting conversation. On one hand, you've got Zelensky, who is doing moral appeals. He is also, you know, appealing to the emotions of people. He's talking about facts which have happened previously. He's been accused of actually using propaganda and using emotional appeals a bit too much. On the other hand, we've got Trump, who is using fear appeals. He's suggesting that him and JD Vance have actually taken the credibility away from Zelensky just a little bit and said that he is not grateful for any of the support. So that's deflecting from some of the real questions and concerns as well. And it's very, very interesting conversation of when you see people who are ultra persuasive, who are very, very clued on in terms of using psychological manipulation, psychological warfare and things like this. And you've got an offense and a defense, then an offense this side, then a defense this side. It's very, very interesting. And there's a lot to learn from this conversation and how these guys actually handle, you know, these battles. But one thing I will say for sure is I do agree that there's a lot of people who need to see more transparency when it comes to what are these conversations actually looking like in the, you know, the back office that we never hear about and we only hear the result of, right? And we got to see it. That might have actually, you know, put a bit of fuel on the entire fire there and created an even bigger argument, but very interesting to watch. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comments. Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think, did I miss any tactics that these guys were using? I'm always reading your comments and enjoying them as well. So take it easy, guys. See you in the next video.